Hi everybody, today I'm going to start glazing some things, and I sometimes use dip glazes, and I've got a whole bunch of brush on glazes that I'd like to use today. This is the Butterbell. You watched me throw this. I made a video on this, and here it is, bisque fired. So this is red clay. And so I'm going to put this stoneware midnight rain. It's Mako, and I'm using Mako. It's got a little black crystal in it, and the lady that wanted this has black granite countertops, and so I thought that would look really pretty in her kitchen. So the first thing on something like this you want to do, and you probably saw this in my glaze or wax which and where video, you have to decide how this is going to sit in the kiln when you fire it. This is going to sit on this edge just like that on a kiln shelf, just like that on a kiln shelf. This this is going to sit just like that. Now, am I going to make it go in here? No, because I have a feeling this comes too close to the inside. You could if this was a little bit narrower, but I believe that this comes a little too close to the inside here, and I'd probably get it stuck. So I'm going to do everything but the bottom on this, and I'm going to do everything but this edge on this one. So let's see. First I need to wax it, don't I? So let's go heat up the wax. We've got this part waxed. I just dipped that in there, so that's waxed on the edge, and then this is waxed on the bottom. This didn't get covered with wax, but it doesn't matter because it's just going to be sitting on the kiln shelf, and I'm not going to be getting wax. I'm not dipping it. So. And one thing I need to tell you about glaze with crystals in it, in particular this Mako glaze, this is number 100 Surf Blue Surf, I think is. And then this is 115. It's the same color as this, except it has black crystals in it. Now, I don't want black crystals because on the inside of here or on the inside of here, and the reason is, nor do I want it on here. I think I'm just going to put the crystalline glaze on this surface. A couple of reasons. Crystal glazes tend to, they're prone to pitting, like they'll have maybe a little pinhole. It doesn't hurt the clay is still sealed and everything. It doesn't hurt the performance of the glaze, but if you're going to have butter in it, and especially at room temperature, you don't want to have a pit where it's possible for you to collect bacteria. It's just, even though it's food safe and it would probably be okay. In fact, people use these without any kind of glaze on them at all, sometimes in the old days. But I'm going to glaze all the surfaces with this without the crystals first, and then so I'm going to put 2 coats of this on all the surfaces, and then on this top surface I'm going to put the glaze with the crystals in it. So just so you know, be aware. And even though most of the time these labels can pretty much say the same thing, they are kind of repetitive, but you really do need to read each one to make sure that you know what you're getting into before you make a mistake, because we put a lot of time and effort into making these things, and it's heartbreaking when you mess something up and it's not usable. It's great for the garden because you can break them all up and use them to help increase the drainage of your soil by putting a bunch of pieces in your garden. Okay, so there's one rather generous, and this is where the butter's going to be, so I just want to make sure I get everything covered. So there's one coat. I'll go to, and I'm using a fan brush, and I'm putting a fairly generous coat. I'm not trying to make that one brush load go all the way around. I'm going to reload my brush and make sure that I get plenty of stuff on there. So one coat can go one direction, doesn't have to, but it can go in one direction, and then the other coat, let's see. If I was going to glaze or fire this with glaze on it, with this sitting in there, I would not be glazing this surface right here. But since these are going to be fired separately, I'm going to go ahead and glaze this. Okay. Now this pot, this part of it is probably just going to hold water. That doesn't make it less important than the part that's going to hold the butter. Because the water is what comes in contact with the butter and it seals. It's what creates the seal, the airtight seal. Don't worry about your brush strokes, they're not going to show. I mean, generally, they're not going to show unless you get carried away. So once you feel like you've got that pretty evenly on there, let it dry. One of the big mistakes that students make using brush on glaze is that they refuse to let it dry. They'll just start painting over something that's already, that they just did. And see, that's turned chalky, but that's not dry. I'm going to go ahead and do this top. Keep it stirred. You want all your pigment to be evenly distributed. I like a fan brush because I can get a pretty good load on one side without worrying about dripping it all over the place. So one side of the brush is really well loaded. Now I'm going to make sure I have the edges. And it's okay to put a fan on this. It won't hurt a bit to sort of speed it up. We've got some real humid weather here. And things take a while to dry sometimes. Okay, so we're going to put another coat. Remember, even if you've let this sit here, and I took a phone call that lasted about an hour, so this needs stirring up when you come back to it, just to make sure you've got it good mixed. So every place that we put glaze before, we're going to put a healthy coat of it again. And remember, don't try to work it down to where it's a real thin coat. Just put it on there and leave it. Okay, we're back, and now we're going to clean off the little spots where there's wax, and we're going to apply the crystal and glaze to the top of this. So let me find a sponge. And I need to switch hands. So this hand needs to be dry. You don't want to handle your glaze with wet hands because you'll melt it all off. Okay, let's see if this will work. So just with this sponge, whoops, that got too much water still in it. Take a smaller sponge. We're just going to go over the part that has wax on it, and it should come off pretty easy. You might need to get your sponge wet a few times. Okay, so now I have the bottom of the butter dish cleaned off. The wax is all that's showing, and I'm just going to set that aside. And we've got this all cleaned off right in here, so it's going to sit on that in the fire. So I'm going to turn that upside right, and we're going to paint the top of this with this glaze. And because it has crystals in it, we're going to stir it up again real good. And this will be the third coat, but the only part that's getting a third coat will be this top part, because the instructions said to do the rest of it with 2 coats, with the other one that doesn't have crystals in it. And this one, if you only used it by itself, you would put 2 coats, but you'd have to be real careful not to get it close to the bottom because it runs. So we're making sure that we go to the bottom of the little jar to get some of those crystals out, so that those crystals will be showing on the top of this. And we're just going to put 1 coat of crystals, and that's it. I think that's all around there, and I think that's good, evenly distributed there. Let me get this edge smooth. Okay. I just want to show you this. See those little pimple looking things? They look like little pieces of gravel. That is the crystal, the little crystals that are in that other glaze. Okay, so each one of those little pebble things is going to melt, and I'll probably flick this one off because it's so close to the edge that I don't want it to slide down and cause a bump right there. But I just wanted you to be able to see the difference. Each one of those will melt, and it'll be all nice and smooth.